Hello and welcome to the Cabinet of Creations, where you will find horror, beauty and the perfectly imperfect. Here we'll start off with finally sanding down the paint. This doll is actually from my stock box, so I haven't actually got video footage of doing the hair, but I've inserted some older footage of the same process I've done on another doll. So basically I cut her hair really short, plunged her head in boiling water, got a flathead screwdriver and scraped all the glue and hair off from the inside, and then you got a nice clean doll head. I think this is where you can really tell the difference between cheap paint and decent paint. As you can see here with the white, I'm losing heart here, it's barely covering the pale lilac, but then I go in with folk art, matte acrylic. Look at the difference. It really does pay to pay that little bit extra for something like this, as I probably would have done about 20,000 coats instead of about 3 or 4. Here I am using 100% acetone to remove the factory makeup and the hair paint. Here we are, nice and clean. I've sprayed Mr. Super Clear just to give that extra grip, and then I'm going in with the folk art matte acrylic paint again. I suppose you could say I was inspired by one of my drawings. I'll insert him here. This is a little bit different puppet that we know of Pinocchio, and obviously my puppet is a lot more friendly. I do drawings also, so please feel free to check out my other videos of my illustrations and drawings and stories after you've watched this video. To help give Marion an aged effect, as though she's been around for a long time, I'm just going in with my nail, scratching off the bits of paint, and then just going over it again with one layer of white paint, just so it's not so stark and it looks like it could have had layers of paint in the past, and the most recent layer of bit has chipped off. And once all that's dry, I go in with Panpastels. I speed up the paint drying time with the hairdryer. It so helps. It probably takes like less than a minute, which because I'm impatient, so yeah. And then I go in with Panpastels, give the blushing to the face and some nice dimension, and I guess you could say realism. Now with this Marion the Puppet, I wanted it to be kind of, is she real? Is she a wooden doll? Obviously you could tell she's some sort of puppet because of the strings and the way she is, etc., and the joints, but I think that feeling of maybe she's coming alive. I'll be quiet now and let you enjoy the face up process using a mix of Panpastels and watercolour pencils. I wanted the joints on this puppet doll to be really apparent, so I went in and put some on as though there's some wooden pegs, the old-fashioned way of joining dolls, and still sometimes used today. And I just really wanted it to look old, worn, it's been used loads before being just discarded and left to gather dust. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share with all your fellow doll enthusiasts or horror themed enthusiasts, or just anyone and everyone really. And also feel free to comment with any ideas you might like in the future. Subscribe because I do lots of other things as well, not just doll repaints. I do drawings, stories. I'm about to design a backdrop for when I'm photographing my dolls, so a little bit of everything really. Anything creative. Here I'm using 2-part Apoxie Sculpt. Don't forget to wear gloves whilst you're actually mixing the sculpt, and don't put the same finger into both pots when you're getting the epoxy out. The only mixing should be once it's out of the tubs and in your hands. And I'm doing this for the hair because I didn't want real hair as such, or wool, you know what I mean, not real hair or acrylic or anything like that, because I wanted it as though the well, I say old fashioned, but the classical traditional dolls that were made out of wood sometimes had, or mostly had, the hair made out of wood as well, as though it was all carved from the one piece. So that's kind of the effect that I wanted here, and it was nice doing something different. I'll definitely do it again in the future, but yeah, it's nice to try something different. And then to smooth things out, you use even your finger or something silicone and water. Or of course, when it's dry thoroughly after about 24 hours, or 12 in my case, you can then go and sand it. Again, the clothes for this doll is no different. I don't exactly do any templates or have got any templates for them. I wing it. Luckily it turns out 99.9% okay, and if it doesn't, I'll simply just do it again. It'll be a learning curve. Here I've done some braces. I wanted it to give the effect of the dungarees hooking over the buttons here, and I think that worked out quite well. That was just for some metal from a little haberdashery bead shop near me. Now for the shoes, got the general gist of the curve that I needed, then actually sewed on the bottom without doing the warbler, like a plastic you can heat up, and then when it cools it goes hard. I wanted something a little bit softer for Marion. And here I am painting on her socks. I will later go in when it's dry and distress it. Again, I wanted the appearance of, she's an old doll, she's been painted on, this is how she might have been originally, but through time she's been scratched and scraped and things have worn away. I think this gives real character. I love doing dolls like this, which are a little bit dirty, a little bit grubby, a little bit scratched. I just think it adds loads of character. I'm now just using the body blushing and pastel technique to make the socks and everything look a bit dirty, and of course using Mr. Super Clear to seal the work. I'm using Folk Art Matte Acrylic, and then when it's dried I will go over with pastels again to give it that aged appearance, and spray Mr. Super Clear. rearranging dolls and making them look worn, just try and think where dust and grime would gather. They would normally go in the crevices, the creases, the cracks, edges, things like that. So I think this is important to consider when you're trying to give a realistic aged effect. I'm going in with Derwent Inktense watercolour pencils here. Here are some ones that I've done before with pencils. I suppose you could say they're realistic. So on this one, I actually wanted it to be sort of like a hybrid between realism and what a doll would be like, even though it is a doll. I see the irony, but doll artists mostly try and make dolls not look like dolls, whereas in this case I needed it to look like a doll that was almost human. Oh, you know what I mean? Oh. And I guess she's got a Tim Burton-esque kind of feel, the way I've done with the darkness around the eyes. I really like that style, almost like a haunting sort of effect. Here we have some Lollipop sticks that were bought in blue, and then I'm just going in with pencils and various paint and whatnot to give it an aged effect, and then later pastels to give the appearance of dust. I'm just using some watered down black acrylic paint to age the material to make it not so even and clean cut. And here's the finishing touches to the actual doll before I make a start on her plinth stand. I'm just going over with varnish to her eyes, her lips and her fingernails. I really enjoyed adding these props to her wooden plinth base, including some very little gorgeously cute wooden cotton reels or bobbins, whatever you would like to call them, and obviously some scraps of material, some buttons. I just wanted it to appear as though it was maybe some sort of forgotten old doll workshop, hence why I went in and added a lot of dust, and you'll see in a moment as well. I think this enables it to almost tell a bit of a story. As you can see from her expression, that she's breaking free from her strings, from her shackles. She's coming alive. She's tripped over some of the bobbins. She's escaping her sort of prison, I guess you could say. Now, making it sound cynical. In my head, I just imagine her being a really old doll, coming to life, breaking free. Everything's good. And with the dust, if you can see on the bottom left of the plinth, as you'll see in the final end photographs, I made it look as though things are spilling and movement by not having dust, so to speak, in the bit where a button would have been, but because she's sort of learning to walk, I guess you could say, she's sort of clattered away into everything and moved the button, hence why it's got no dust underneath. That was the idea anyway. I think it worked. What do you think? Let me know. Leave a comment. And here's the completed Marion the Puppet.